Above the shorelines of the mid-Triassic, a small pterosaur, Prehistoric, has begun her morning flight. Flying over the forest on thin wings and balanced with her long tail, she follows the river towards the ocean. As she makes her usual journey, she sees the coast's largest residents, the long-necked Tanystropheus. Though they look a bit like sauropods, but they aren't dinosaurs at all. They are a species of archosaur that has evolved necks longer than their bodies and tail combined, and they use them to snatch fish from the water. Along both banks of the river, the long necks of the Tanystropheus can be seen suspended above the water, watching and waiting to plunge their heads below the surface and catch unsuspecting fish. The Prehistoric continues down the river, and soon to the coast, where the expansive reef provides plenty of shelter and food for all types of marine life. And the Tanystropheus are also here. They not only stand on the shoreline, but perch on top of rocks or even wade into the water to get at harder to reach food. The reef is in very shallow water, so large predators can't get here, confined to deeper sections or the drop-off. Even in the deeper parts of the reef, however, there are more Tanystropheus. Underwater, they use completely different feeding strategies, from laying perfectly still amongst the coral and then darting their heads forward to catch unwary prey, to using their back legs to propel themselves forward into schools of fish to snatch up one or two in their needle-sharp teeth. It is this type of behavior the Prehistoric is looking for. When the Tanystropheus strike, they startle the fish or squid, sending them in all directions, including to the surface. It is then that the small pterosaur flies in over the water and snatches up a meal, since most of them are too worried about the threat below them to bother looking up. With a sizable fish secured in her jaws, the female finds a vacant rock to rest and safely swallow her catch. As she does, she notices the increasing number of Tanystropheus coming to the shores. Most seem to favor staying on the beach as opposed to swimming, standing steadfast with outstretched necks till one swiftly dips its head underwater and sometimes coming up with a catch. The small pterosaur looks to the deep ocean and understands why. Most of these large reptiles prefer not to risk deep water. There are massive marine reptiles in the open sea, as well as many more nameless things. She took to the wing again and flew gracefully across the shore, the clear blue water breaking against the white sands, and a gathering of the Triassic's weirdest denizens that called it home. Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we will be breaking down the Triassic's long boy, Tanystropheus. Tanystropheus was a large archaeosauromorph from the mid to late Triassic era, between 247 million and 208 million years ago, and its remains have been found from Italy to the Middle East and even to China. First discovered in the 19th century, the fossils were at one point thought to belong to a pterosaur. However, they eventually realized that the long bones were neck vertebrae and not wings or tail bones. It got up to 6 meters long, and just over half of that length was its head and neck. So how did it not topple over? Well, the bones in its neck were mostly hollow and very light. In fact, the head and neck only made up 20% of its total weight. There were also skin impressions that show that Tanystropheus had a mass of large muscles in its hips, so its center of gravity was far back from the neck, meaning that it would have been nicely balanced. Its neck had 13 very elongated vertebrae, which given its neck length isn't a lot, so it wasn't very flexible and quite rigid. Its head was triangular in shape and filled with needle-like teeth. So what role did it play in its environment? Originally, it was thought that Tanystropheus was mostly aquatic, swimming in the Triassic oceans. However, its body isn't really adapted for sea life. The neck was very rigid, its limbs were thin and not good paddles, and the tail was rather short, so not good for propulsion. However, stomach contents of Tanystropheus show that it did eat fish and cephalopods, and its remains are often found near oceans and rivers. One of the leading theories is that Tanystropheus would wait at the edges of bodies of water with its long neck extended out, and then when prey would pass under it, it would plunge its head into the water and snap up prey. In a weird way, it fished, and was similar to some modern herons, except, well, a lot bigger, and a reptile. In fact, paleontologist Mark Whitten called Tanystropheus a croco-heron. As odd as the mental image is, it kind of makes sense, since its heavy hips would have helped it center itself as it made the dipping motion. A more recent study shows that Tanystropheus had quite flexible back legs, and it could use them like a frog to boost itself through the water over short distances to surprise and catch prey, and is based on a fossil trackway that may have been made by Tanystropheus doing this movement. So it was likely not fully aquatic, but may have had some adaptations for it, like moving around in the water. In fact, Tanystropheus may likely have been evolving to become more aquatic. It may be a transitionary period from heron-like fisher to shallow water hunter. Given the range that it lived, and the amount of fossils that we have, it's clear that Tanystropheus was very successful, and likely had little to fear as it was quite large for a Triassic animal. At the end of the day, I'll never get the image of it being a living, dipping bird out of my head, though. But what do you think of Tanystropheus? Are you more convinced of the heron-like lifestyle, or think it was more of an aquatic hunter? Or, like me, do you think that it may have done both? Let me know what lesser-known creature you'd like me to cover in a future episode, and until then, thank you for watching.